So you're doing a little bit of research on Ashland, Oregon. Well, congratulations, because you found the one video on YouTube that is going to absolutely give you all of the information that you're looking for. Okay, we're going to talk about everything you can possibly imagine about Ashland, Oregon. So whether you're just visiting or you're thinking about moving to Ashland, Oregon, or you're currently living in Ashland, Oregon, whatever it is, we are going to absolutely nail it and provide all of the information that you want. We're going to talk about the climate, about the culture. We're going to talk about schools. We're going to talk about where to go eat, where to go play, what to do, where to go to school. I mean, we're going to go into all of it. And I'm going to tell you even the stuff that you probably don't even want to know, which is all the things that are bad about Ashland too. Okay, so we're going to go into all that information because I actually went out and I talked to the locals and I got the information straight from the horse's mouth about what they hate. So if you stick around to the end, you can go right to that section and we will discuss what they hate, which is crazy. It's going to blow your mind. But without further ado, let's dive right in. And I'm going to tell you exactly what Ashland is known for, okay? And that is the culture, all right? So Ashland, Oregon is a very cultured, artsy town, and that's what it's pretty much known for. That's kind of the reputation around it locally and everything. It's very artsy, lots of art galleries. It's home to Southern Oregon University, and so as a college town, you tend to get a lot more of that type of stuff going on in the town and in the general area. And so not only is it home to Southern Oregon University, which brings a lot of culture and those sorts of things to it, but it's also home to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and that is a amazing production play type venue that does all sorts of really, really cool Shakespeare plays and various other types of plays as well. But it's a world-renowned Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and it's something that you absolutely have got to check out if you're interested in that type of stuff. You've probably already heard of it if you're interested in that type of stuff, honestly, but it is absolutely incredible and something that's worth certainly checking out if you're in Ashland. But that is just a prime example of the type of thing that gives Ashland that really cultured, artsy kind of feel. Okay, in addition, we also have the Ashland Independent Film Festival. Okay, that's another really cool artsy, culture kind of thing. And there's countless, and I mean countless, art galleries that you could cruise on the streets of the plaza and walk around and check out all of those things and see art from local artists that are paintings and photography and sculptures and just all sorts of really, really cool stuff there. So that's definitely the thing that Ashland is known for. I would say the profile of the type of person that is kind of the typical Ashlandite would probably be more that kind of wealthy, kind of retiree, maybe a retired doctor kind of a person. And so if you picture that in Ashland, you kind of can start to see like what it's well known for, that cultured kind of higher end type of a town. Politically, it's actually another thing that it's known for. The politics in Ashland are pretty liberal, and that's something that especially locally, Ashland's known for that. It's known for being the liberal hub of Southern Oregon, because Oregon in general is a pretty liberal state. Obviously, if you've looked at a political map, it's generally a blue state. But Southern Oregon and really everywhere other than like Eugene and Salem and Portland, everywhere else is very red. Okay, and that includes Southern Oregon, where Ashland is home to. But Ashland is that one little kind of hub of it all that's very, very blue. So within Ashland itself, it's a very liberal city within a very conservative county, within a very liberal state. So here we are talking about politics, and I feel like I jumped the gun there. We don't even know each other, and I'm just going straight into politics. So why don't I introduce myself? I'm Brian Simmons with the Buying Southern Oregon Real Estate team at eXp Realty, and I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Southern Oregon. So if you are one of those who's thinking about moving to Southern Oregon or relocating here, retiring here, whatever it is, I'd love to help you. Or even if you're a resident that lives here currently and you're thinking about buying or selling locally, reach on out. My phone number is 541-954-7758, or you can shoot me an email, and you can find that down in the description of this video. So let's continue on, and I'm going to tell you another thing that Ashland is really, really well known for, and that is the natural beauty and the climate. Okay, so Southern Oregon in general has what we call a Mediterranean climate. Okay, a lot of people think of Oregon and they think rainforest, right? Portland type rainforest, or Seattle. They're all known as the Pacific Northwest, which is really wet. But we are very different down here, okay? So Ashland and Southern Oregon in general, the Rogue Valley, has a much more Mediterranean style climate, okay? We're a lot more like Northern California than we are like Northern Oregon. And we're just kind of in this kind of perfect little zone, in my opinion, where the weather is fantastic, okay? We have about 200 days of sunshine a year. Highs in the summer are usually in the 90s. They can get up higher than that. We can get into the hundreds for sure. And in the winter, we're pretty moderate, and we get highs, in the 40s with lows. They could get into the 20s or teens, and I've seen maybe a single digit like once or twice in the 30 years I've lived here. But it can happen, right? Like, it just is what's not typical. Okay, so typically we have right around the freezing mark in the mornings when it's winter time, and then right around the 90s in summertime for our highs then. So it's very moderate and temperate. It's really, really good weather, so it makes it a great climate for being able to go out and do things. Okay, we have, like I said, 200 days of sunshine a year, and so there's cloudy days, of course, but we don't have that much rainfall. Okay, I don't remember the exact number of inches, but I know it's not a whole lot. You can Google that and see the exact number yourself, but I'll tell you what, it's so insignificant that you can go out and do a lot of really, really fun things outdoors. So if you're into hiking or biking or any of those types of things, the climate is fantastic for that, and we'll talk more about those things here soon. But climate, again, is one of the great things that Ashland is very, very well known for. And those same conditions that make it so desirable for folks wanting to live here also make it very desirable for plants. Okay, so a lot of people that come to Ashland or live in Ashland are very interested in gardening and creating really nice yard spaces and those sorts of things. And so that's one of the things that Ashland does a really, really good job of, even as a city, is ensuring that the city is very green. Okay, you'll see a lot of trees, and if you go into Lithia Park, which we'll also talk about here shortly, you'll see a lot of plants all over the place, from big old redwood trees to really cool Japanese maples. And if you go into the Japanese garden there, you'll see some even really, really incredible stuff, even more incredible stuff there. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I want to talk a little bit about some of the facts and history of Ashland to just kind of set the stage a little bit more. So Ashland, Oregon is a city of about 20,000 people, and we're about 16 miles north of the California border, right on Interstate 5. So if you look at a Google map and you type in Ashland, that's exactly what you're going to see. We are at the southern end of what we call the Rogue Valley. So you come on I-5 up over the Sea Pass, and you come into the Rogue Valley, and this is big, beautiful valley. And Ashland's at the southern end of that valley, at an elevation of about 1,950 feet. So it's one of the higher, it's probably the highest city really in the Rogue Valley. It's higher than Medford, higher than Grants Pass. And with that, it is a little bit cooler, probably 3 to 5 degrees cooler in the summers, and a little bit cooler in the winters. So the snow level tends to get, a little bit more snow in Ashland than it does down in the valley floor of Medford and Grants Pass. So being on the southern tip of the Rogue Valley, Ashland was actually one of the first towns that people came up to in Southern Oregon as they were migrating up from the the gold rush in Northern California. Ashland was one of the first places that saw settlers come to it. Okay, Jacksonville was first, and then it was Ashland was the second, probably the second place to be settled in Southern Oregon. Okay, because it was all right around the early 1850s. I think Jackson was 1853, Ashland was 1855 when they created the post office there, and they named it Ashland Mills. Okay, so after the fact, some years later, they dropped the Mills part off of it, and it just has gone on known as Ashland. Because of that history, you get a lot of historic buildings, a lot of places that are on the National Register of Historic Buildings and those sorts of things that are protected, and really, really cool. And so also a lot of older homes from the early 1900s and stuff that are beautiful, with ornate detailing and all those sorts of things. So lots of really, really cool stuff, involved in the history of Ashland, which is awesome. A lot of fun to see those things. One of the things that's really, really incredible to see in Ashland, and again, it's also historic, is Lithia Park. Okay, and Lithia Park was established back in the early 1900s, I think 1908 or 1910, somewhere around there. And it was designed actually by the same designer as the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. So lots of really unique history around, the Lithia Park and the discovery of Lithia water, which is mineral water, and, the plans there to create, a business around it and bottle it, and, all sorts of cool stuff. Like, so when you're in Ashland, there's a plaza right there in the middle of town, which I'll show you when I show you a map of Ashland. But the plaza has a fountain where you can drink the Lithia water, and it has a little plaque there that talks all about the history. So a lot of really cool details there about the history of Ashland and just some little facts and figures for you. But now I want to change gears, and let's talk about the cost of living in Ashland. So I'll start by saying Ashland is probably the most expensive part of Southern Oregon, okay? And so that starts to sound like, might scare some people away, but let's put that into perspective, okay? Because if you talk about it in comparison to the other parts of the West Coast, Ashland is actually really affordable, okay? So if you compare, to the nation, it's Ashland and Southern Oregon in general sits at just 6% above the national average in terms of cost of living, which takes a look at everything from housing to grocery costs to transportation costs and all those sorts of things. So 6% above the national average. And again, that includes the entire nation, okay? All the East Coast, the Middle America, the West Coast, the whole ball of wax. But let's look at where most people are moving to Ashland from, and it is, of course, California and Washington and Arizona, right? So if we look at Seattle, it's 58% above the national average in terms of the cost of living. Portland's 28%, San Francisco is about 145%. And I know LA and San Jose and some of these other cities are all pretty similar, but they're significantly more expensive than places like Ashland, Oregon, and the rest of Southern Oregon. But the main thing that's significantly less expensive here is housing, okay? And so again, like I said, Ashland in comparison to the rest of Southern Oregon, the housing is on the higher end. But if you're looking at it in comparison to parts of California, parts of northern Washington, like Seattle, the housing cost here is quite a bit less. And so, for example, the median home price in Ashland is around $600,000. But if you wanted to look at, brand new construction, you can find a nice 3-bed, 2-bath home in Ashland in the sevens, maybe even a little bit lower. Or, depending on the area of town, you could obviously go a little bit higher and get into the 8s and 9s for a nice new 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. If you go really fancy, you can get even, significantly more than that. You can get into the multi-millions if you look for a place up on the hill or in one of the favorite neighborhoods, which I will talk to you a little bit more about here shortly. Another big thing to know about Ashland is just the sense of community. Okay, so if you think about Ashland as a town, it's 20,000 people, right? So it's not a big, huge city where you're going to run into people that you have, no idea. Like if you're living in Ashland and you go to the grocery store, you'll probably bump into people that you know. If you go to the Ashland Food Co-op, I'm sure you'll, and you're a regular there, I'm sure you'll start to get to know people, get to know the cashiers and all those sorts of things. And it really has like a nice small town feel for being 20,000 people and the third largest city in Southern Oregon, okay? And that should give you an example of just how small Southern Oregon really is, because across Jackson and Josephine counties, we only have 300,000 people and 20,000 of them reside in Ashland. So we talked earlier about how politically Ashland is pretty liberal, and that's actually something that kind of lends to the sense of community, okay? There's a lot of like-minded people in Ashland who care about the same types of things, whether it be, the environment or, the Ashland Food Co-op, for example, or just whatever it is, right? There's a lot of people that just have the same beliefs, and that's, a big fabric of the community. And so the environment is definitely one of them. And so in Ashland, you're going to find a lot more people who are into the solar scene. They'll put solar on their homes, and who are into like really, just sustainable living and all that kind of stuff. And it's great. And so if that's something that's important to you, it's, in Ashland, it's important to a lot of people. And so you probably fit right in with all those common interests, okay? Another thing that adds to the sense of community in a weird way is actually the tourism. So you don't really think about tourism being, something that creates a close-knit community, but in Ashland, it kind of does, because Southern Oregon in general is not a very touristy area. And so you get this kind of one hub where there is some general tourism because of things like the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, the Ashland Independent Film Festival, all those things we talked about, even the wine country all around Ashland. It does tend to bring people in, and it's a pretty quick drive up from, the San Francisco Bay Area, all that type of stuff. And so it tends to bring a lot of tourists in from areas like that, right? So there does tend to be actually a sense of community around that and the type of people who are, supporting that, whether it be the folks that are involved in the restaurant industry or the entertainment like the Oregon Shakespeare Festival or the art galleries. There's really a sense of community around supporting those businesses that are, reliant upon the tourists. And so the community does welcome the tourists from my experience. And I'm sure, there's always in towns like that, people who are like, hey, we don't like the tourists, we want to just stick to ourselves. I don't ever really get that sense when I'm in Ashland, and I think it's a very welcoming town. But speaking of the tourism, one of the things that you got to know about if you're coming into Ashland, Oregon, is the restaurants. Okay, there's some really, really good food in Ashland, and again, that's something that the community like super supports and is very excited about. And you see a lot of locals out eating, at these great restaurants all the time. I'll say. So, for example, Osteria Labricola is one of my favorite restaurants, if not my favorite. Probably is my favorite. I'm gonna call it my favorite in Ashland. It's a fantastic Italian restaurant. They do house-made pastas and all sorts of incredible dishes. So that's one you definitely have to check out if you're in town. If you're really into the fancy cooking and stuff, you should check out this restaurant called Moss, which was on the New York Times Best 50 Restaurants list in the entire country. So, I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know. It's an absolutely incredible restaurant. And another really fun one is called Alchemy, and they have some very creative dishes and cocktails and all sorts of really cool stuff there. And that's just a great vibe. So all of those places are exceptional, and there's even more. I could go on forever on different places like Mixed Bakery or Sandwich, or the different breweries or the different vineyards around. There's so many different fun places to go for food if you're really looking for that type of an experience in Ashland. Since we're talking about the things to do, let's go into that a little bit. Okay, so if you are a outdoorsy type of a person, you're gonna love Ashland. Okay, the hiking, the biking, there's mountain bike trails that might be more than you could shake a stick at. Okay, there's tons of single track. You could go up to Mount Ashland and ski and snowboard in the winters, and then you could ride your mountain bike up there in the summer and the spring and all that good stuff. Tons and tons and tons of stuff like that to do outdoors. The Pacific Crest Trail is nearby. You could go hike into the Klamath Mountains nearby. You could hike all over the place. You go hike into the Soda Mountain area. You can do all sorts of stuff. There's endless amounts of hikes that you could do right around the Ashland area, okay? And that's in addition to all the walking that you can do in town, all right? So Ashland is relatively hilly, and so you'll see, plenty of hills as you look at pictures and stuff of the town. But there's all sorts of great walking paths and trails and stuff in town, all right? And Lithia Park, like I mentioned, is right in the center of town, and it has fantastic walking trails that you could cruise all around if you want to go take your dog for a walk or whatever, and just get a really outdoorsy experience being right in the middle of town, okay? In addition to that, you have the lakes. Like you have Immigrant Lake right outside of Ashland, just a few miles, where you could go kayaking or paddleboarding or even boating and fishing and all the things that you could do there. There's the high mountain lakes like Hyatt Lake and Howard Prairie, Lake of the Woods. All those are just right up the hill. And so just really endless things to do, in addition to the rivers, the Rogue River's right down the road, and there's the rafting and the kayaking and the fishing and all the sort of recreating you can do there. The Klamath River just back into the Northern California, or the Applegate River out in the Applegate Valley, and all the wine tasting and all those things. So seriously, I mean, if you like being outdoors, there are so much to do. It's crazy. And we haven't even talked about golfing. We haven't talked about hunting. I mean, it's endless. There's so much to do. So if you like that kind of stuff, you will absolutely love Ashland. It is the place to be for those types of activities. It's hard to really imagine anywhere that has more of that type of stuff. And I know there's like places that have great hiking, like maybe more picturesque, really incredible trails like you could get in Yosemite, or maybe, if you're in the Rocky Mountains or something like that. But just the accessibility of it all in Ashland is what's really special. There's so much that's so close, where you could just get onto the Pacific Crest Trail and hike to Mexico if you wanted to, or Canada if you want to go the other way. The Crater Lake National Park is right up the road. I mean, there's just so many great things to do for the folks that love to be outdoors, which again is something that really has the community is rallied around as being a very outdoorsy, very active, very cultured type of community. So it's all, all of that fits into it very, very well. So now that we're talking about fitting into the community, I'm going to tell you some of the neighborhoods that you might fit into, okay? And so to do that, let me actually hop onto my computer, and I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to show you some of the actual lay of the land and where these neighborhoods are. I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of a lay of the land here of Ashland, Oregon. So you can see this is Southern Oregon. Grants Pass is over here. Central Point, Medford over here, and then Ashland is way over here, down here on the south, and this is California, all down here. So if we zoom out, give you a little bit of the view there. We are going straight into Ashland right here. Okay, So I'll give you the lay of the land here of Ashland. So you have Interstate 5 here that goes along, and I'm going to go into the satellite view to give you an even better view, but you can see Interstate 5 here goes along, and then Ashland is kind of right along it on Highway 99. And if we go and look at even the 3D view, you can see it's pretty sweet. A lot of mountains and stuff in the area. Mount Ashland is up over here. Right there's a ski area. You get some really cool vineyards and stuff like that over in here that you can see popping up. And then you have Immigrant Lake over in here. But you can see how, I-5 comes up out of California. This is the pass, Siskiyou Mountain Pass, highest pass on I-5. But you can see Ashland's just not very far from California. So, and then as you continue on north on I-5, you get into Phoenix and Medford and all the way out into Grants Pass, way out there in the distance. But I always think that's kind of a pretty cool view to see. So anyways, if we go back and we pay attention to Ashland itself, you'll see that Highway 99 comes right through, and that's kind of the main drag in Ashland, actually. And so the main, downtown part of Ashland is what you see right here. And this is Main Street that comes up, and Lithia Way that comes back down. And so this little section right here is what we call the plaza. And so it has all, great restaurants kind of lining this street here. Osteria Labricola is right on this stretch. And there's some other great restaurants in these other buildings and some great shops and stuff like that. The Oregon Shakespeare Festival is right here, right off of the plaza. And then you have Lithia Park, which is this whole thing all through here that surrounds Ashland Creek, which is where you kind of see more of these trees and stuff. Ashland Creek goes right through there. It's right through here. Anyways, beautiful, beautiful park right in the middle of town, and has so many amazing features. I actually talk a lot about that in other videos, so I won't spend a lot of time on that here, but I wanted to show you kind of the lay of the land of Ashland, because there's a couple areas that I talk about in some other videos that I think are worth mentioning here in terms of neighborhoods. And one of them is this area right in here, which is called, I call it just the Granite Street area. And so that's Granite Street right here, has some just absolutely gorgeous homes on it. If we cruise down and check this out, you'll see, there's some beautiful older homes and all sorts of really, really nice stuff going on here. Look at these nice, beautiful homes. And the great thing is the proximity. You can see, you literally are steps away from the plaza. So it's very attractive for that reason. All this area is all very walkable to get into town, to the plaza, all the restaurants and everything. So great area there. Super close to the Lithia Park, super close to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, the plaza, all of the above. So you can see why, homes in here are multi-millions. But you can actually, find something maybe a couple blocks up that's much, much more affordable, under $1 million and maybe in like the sixes even if you find something up in this range. So those are out there. You can find them. But the other area I want to mention is what I'm going to call the Ashland Hills area. And if we again look at kind of this, more 3D view, you can see that this is a pretty good hill right here. So you'll see, from this hill, you kind of come up off of Siskiyou Boulevard, but that is the Ashland Hills area. And you'll see the view is of the hills to the east. So cool area for sure over here. Also very convenient to be able to get into the restaurants and stuff downtown. If you're over in this area, Terrace Street and kind of up in here where you're going to get the really incredible views, Ridge Road, all this, probably not as walkable to get into town because it's just, going to be coming up and down the hill. But still very close, so it'd be really no big deal to ride a bike in or to just drive in. It's not like you're having to go far, but homes in this area are amazing as well. There's some really, really spectacular places up here that have great views and everything, big homes, and there's also some smaller original homes that can be had in here too. So again, price range in this area is really it's pretty wide variety. Honestly, you can find things in the multi-millions and you could find things in, you know, the upper sixes, sevens, you know, that range. But again, you know, proximity to town, very good there. And proximity to all the hiking trails and stuff like that. So if you continued on out this, you know, Granite Street where we talked about originally, you continue on out Granite Street and you get to this Ashland Creek trailhead, and there's so many trails, you know, hiking trails, biking trails. You can even see them on the map here. Look at all these trails that you see. There's tons of stuff available right there. And that's also very accessible from the Ashland Hills area, obviously, as well, as you can see here with these different streets that you can get down there to. So very, very popular neighborhood for those reasons. Okay, so let's cruise over to the other area that I think is really awesome. And that is called the Mountain Park area. So if we were to come out of the hills here and cruise down Main Street here, there's the plaza and all that. The area that I wanted to mention is right over here. And it's really kind of all of this. So this is a great little area off of North Mountain Park. Some beautiful, beautiful homes here. Briscoe, Clinton, that area has some really, really nice homes. And those are going to be in like the 800 range, 700, maybe even in the 9s in some of them if they're bigger. But you have great access to this park over here. Bear Creek runs through. And then this area right up above it is also really incredible. I've seen a lot of homes in here, a lot of new construction going on, and they're beautiful. So I showed, see this one right here is actually built now, and I showed that, and it was absolutely stunning. Okay, and so you're right across from this whole park, the Kestrel Park, and Bear Creek, and so there's walking paths and, you know, dog parks and all sorts of really cool stuff there. So I like this area a lot. I think it's nice because it's also convenient in its location. There's a restaurant up here. There's just some different things going on up here, different types of homes, different sizes of homes, some condos. And there's also some of these like Mountain Meadows retirement community, which it's kind of like not a full-on like assisted living, but it's one where you could have like a meal plan included in your HOA, for example, your homeowners association fees. So anyways, very cool area, lots of good stuff going on there, and not too far, you know, off the beaten path to get back into downtown. You would just come right down here, just like this, and come on right down, and bam, you're right close to town. So not far at all, but a really, really a cool area. And another one that I like a lot is this part right here. Okay, and so this is called Randy Street, is what you see here, and then Coffee Lane, and I would expand that even into this Nevada Street in this area. And here, a lot of like really pretty homes and newer homes that they've built in this area, and you can see the solar panels on a lot of these homes. They've, you know, incorporated that into the community when they developed it. But great, you know, homes in there, going to be in like the 8s, maybe 7s. And you can even get into these cottages. These are, you know, 750 square foot cottages, so very small, not going to be, you know, suitable for everybody, but very small cottages that are, you know, under $400,000. And so something that, you know, if you're looking for just a small space for yourself or something, that's a way to get a nice new home in Ashland at a great location at a pretty affordable price. And so if you're something, you know, if that's something you're interested in, I'm happy to give you more information about those or any of the others, obviously, that we are looking at. And so one more area that I want to show you is probably the most fancy, most high end of them all. And that is all these areas over here to the east. Okay. And so if we call these, you know, the East Hills, Immigrant Lake, I'm going to show you some of these homes that are absolutely gorgeous. Like, look at this, Bellafiore Vineyard is unbelievable. I don't know if it'll zoom in and show us the pictures of it, but it's really, really spectacular. Really, really cool place. So lots of good stuff there, but there's also just some other homes around. Again, this Irvine and Roberts, great vineyard, really pretty setting, looking up at, you know, the foothills over here, going up into the Cascade Mountains. So
very pretty out there. And as we go over towards Immigrant Lake, there's even more, big homes on property and stuff out in this area where you could, have a garden, or if you want, horses and those sorts of things. There's a lot of good options for those out here around the Immigrant Lake area. And also even, looking at places like these, just as examples of some of the really pretty estates and stuff that you have surrounding, the Ashland area in those hills over to the east. And so if you get up here, you can continue on up into the High Cascades. This is Highway 66, which is Green Springs Highway, and that goes up higher into the high mountains. Or you can go up Dead Indian Memorial Road, which is also, gets you right up into the high mountains. But again, really nice, homes in those foothills on both sides. Really pretty places, as you can see. So those are my favorite neighborhoods. And now let's go and talk about some of the schools in Ashland.
Now that we're back from our little tour of Ashland, let me tell you about the schools in Ashland. Okay, so Ashland is actually, like I mentioned, it's a college town, right? So it's home to Southern Oregon University, which is a liberal arts school, which has all sorts of different programs, from all the liberal arts type stuff, English and history and those sorts of things, to criminal justice, to business, to nursing, to all the arts and those sorts of things that you would expect in a town like this. So lots of great things there from Southern Oregon University, even computer science and those sorts of things. Some really great programs around all that. But when we're talking about schools, I want to actually talk about the schools. Like if you have kids that go to elementary school, okay? So Ashland is its own school district, right? There's the Ashland School District, and they have 3 elementary schools, a middle school, a high school, and even an outdoor school that goes all the way from kindergarten to 8th grade, okay? And so in terms of, the school districts compared to others in Southern Oregon, I've heard a lot that Ashland is one of the more desirable ones, okay? I don't live in Ashland personally, so I don't have any experience with going to it or my kids going to it or anything, but I know just from talking to my clients who do a lot of research on this type of stuff before they move here, in talking to them, a lot of them say that, they found that the Ashland schools are actually rated pretty high relative to some of the other areas of Southern Oregon, okay? So I can't say I've heard that any other area is particularly bad, but I would just say that Ashland, they say, is particularly good, and that's a nice thing. So that's what I've heard there. There's some really good resources out there to look at if you're interested in learning more about the schools. Of course, you could contact the school district themselves and review their website and all that stuff. And there's also a website called greatschools.net, I think, it might be .org. But either way, it's a great resource that I've looked at to find a lot of information about the school district boundaries and just the ratings of the schools and the test scores and those sorts of things to get a good sense. But I know Ashland High School, for example, has earned really high marks and is known and very well respected for being a really, really solid school. So check those things out if you're interested in learning more about that. And we're going to move on to one more topic, which is the worst things about living in Ashland, Oregon. I'm going to dive into that. So what do I think is the worst part about Ashland? Okay, I'm going to tell you, number one, I think that it is pretty expensive. Okay, the property taxes in Ashland tend to be quite high in comparison to other parts of Southern Oregon. So if you buy, a $600,000 or $700,000 house, you could pay $7,000 a year in property taxes. I mean, they could be in that range. They could even be higher. But in other parts of Southern Oregon, if you buy a $600,000 or $700,000 house, you could pay $3,000 in property taxes every year. So it is pretty high for property taxes. And Ashland also has some different taxes that other parts of Southern Oregon do not. Like a food tax, and again, that kind of is related to the tourism thing, and so you get a lot of tourists coming in. They tax the restaurant, the food at the restaurants, and just generate an extra little bit of revenue for the city that way. So it does make it more expensive for folks wanting to dine, but it's not significant. So, but either way, it's there, and so I think it's something that's worth knowing about. The other thing I don't really love about Ashland is the progressive city council. Okay, and what I mean by that is that they tend to really try to push their beliefs, push them on you, rather than try to kind of let you do your thing, right? And so what I mean by that as an example is they've recently tried to do a fire score where they require that any town or any house that sells in Ashland has to have a fire score given to it, and they have to, you know, meet a certain level before the home can be sold. Okay, thankfully that never passed, but that's something that they really tried to push. Now they're working on trying to ban natural gas in new construction, and I just think that that is, you know, whether that's you believe that and agree or disagree or whatever your belief is on the environmental impact of that, I don't have an argument there on either side of that. I just say I don't feel like it's a city's place to tell you that you can't have natural gas heat in your house, right? If the power were to go out and you're only electric, you have no heat, okay? And that happens. So if you want to have natural gas heat because it's very reliable and all that sort of stuff, like that just makes sense to me to be able to make that choice yourself as a consumer. And if you personally don't want to have that type of heat or that type of source or that type of fuel in your home, great, don't have it, okay? But I just don't know that I agree with, you know, the city council trying to make it their position to say that no, you cannot do that here, and I just don't know if I like that. So that's one of the things that I would say is one of the worst parts about Ashland is the city council is a little bit aggressive and progressive with that type of stuff. And the third thing I don't love about Ashland is that it's pretty isolated. It is and it isn't, right? So it's isolated in the sense that it is a little further away from town. It's about 13 miles from Medford, but it's also kind of isolated in the sense that it is, you know, the liberal hub in a very conservative county, in a conservative area, in a liberal state, right? So it's kind of this little pocket, and so it tends to have its own culture, it tends to have its own feel and all that, and that could very easily be viewed as a positive thing depending on which way you want to look at things. But I would say that to me, you know, if I lived in Ashland, I wouldn't really feel like I'm part of the greater Southern Oregon area. I would feel like I'm kind of almost, you know, more of an isolated, not an outcast per se, but just kind of like you're on your own little island out there in Ashland, and that may or may not appeal to some people. I don't know. But to me, I love all of Southern Oregon, and that's one of the reasons why I would say being isolated like that would probably be on the negative side to me. But instead of hearing my opinion on what the worst things are about Ashland, Oregon, why don't you hear it straight from a couple of the locals who I interviewed, and I asked them point blank, what do you hate about living in Ashland, Oregon? Here's what they said. Is there anything that you hate about living in Southern Oregon that just really bothers you about the place?
No.
No. I mean, sometimes the winters last a little too long for my taste.
I don't love the rain and the snow, although I know we need it. It's just not my favorite.
I don't say I could say anything I hate. I think the difficulty was like the one-way streets.
There's been some economic decline, and I think it's affecting everybody. But I feel like because of our temperate weather, we tend to attract more transient people.
You know what? I actually made an entire separate video about this exact topic where I went around town and I asked all of the Ashland locals that I could find, what do you hate about living in Ashland, Oregon? And I created a whole separate video about it. So instead of remaking that video right here, why don't you just click on this one right here and check it out, and you can watch that one yourself. Again, I'm Brian Simmons with the Buying Southern Oregon team at eXp Realty. I thank you for watching this video. And if there's anything I can do to help you learn, buy, or list real estate, please don't hesitate to reach out. Call or text me at 541-954-7758. Thank you for watching.